They called it a diplomatic demonstration, but to the people of Earth, it looked more like a condescending space flex. High above the planet's surface, the Arxani Federation's flagship, the Triumvirate of Peace, because apparently irony was universal, hung like an obsidian blade, flanked by 20 cruisers and a pompous declaration that humanity would be peacefully subdued. The transmission was crystal clear, broadcast in 17 languages: surrender, disarm, and embrace technological enlightenment. Earth's only response was a wide-angle shot of their orbital fleet, if you could even call it that. No glowing plasma cores, no shimmering shields, just a slow, rusted ballet of steel-hulled ships that looked like they'd been assembled with duct tape, chewing gum, and the leftover fury of 1,000 forgotten wars. Ambassador Vorek of the Arxani stared at the screen with thinly veiled disgust. "They're still using railguns," he sneered, "projectile weapons with actual metal." Behind him, one of his aides whispered, "They don't even have shield arrays." "No," Vorek replied, "they have scrap with attitude." He wasn't wrong. Earth's flagship, the USS Basilisk, had visible rivets, external heat vents, and something that might have been a nuclear reactor strapped to the hull with reinforced tow cable. From orbit, it looked like a war crime in motion. From the Arxani perspective, it was laughable until the scans came back. "Sir," the tactical officer said, "their fleet's not moving at all. They're waiting." "For what?" Vorek snapped. "For us to finish laughing?" But Earth wasn't laughing. Earth was locking on. Inside the Basilisk, Commander Arya Nox stood calmly, chewing what might have been nicotine gum or a chunk of battle-hardened caffeine. "Status?" she asked. "Targets locked," her weapons officer said. "Kinetic batteries are spun up, projectiles aligned to breach window." Nox nodded. "Let them fire first. Federation protocol says they love the drama." Seconds later, the Triumvirate of Peace began its performance, wide-arcing energy beams like theater spotlights, choreographed intimidation designed to stun and awe. It was beautiful if you liked fireworks, but fireworks don't pierce armor. "Commander?" her comms officer asked. "Fire," Nox said, spitting the gum into a tactical bin. The first salvo launched, 6 tungsten slugs traveling at Mach 25, dead silent in the void. No light, no theatrics, just mass. And velocity. The Arxani didn't even register the attack until one of their cruisers collapsed inward like a beer can in a black hole. No explosions, no shields, just instant structural failure. Vorek spun toward the screen. "What was that? What hit us? I saw nothing." "Impact confirmed," Earth's weapons tech said, yawning. "That's one. 5 more in the pipe." In the Arxani war room, chaos bloomed like fungus. Their defense systems weren't designed to intercept chunks of metal moving that fast, because no one was insane enough to still use them. No, Earth was the only one that dumb, or brilliant, or both. Probably both. As the second round tore through another ship's reactor core, Vorek screamed, "Activate shields. Get those beams online. Return fire." "Sir, their fleet isn't even moving," his officer whispered. "They haven't taken a single hit." "No," Vorek muttered, watching another cruiser vanish from the display. "They're just watching." By the time the third slug hit, the Arxani flagship wasn't broadcasting speeches anymore. The Triumvirate of Peace had taken a direct kinetic strike to its lateral comms array and was now venting a polite amount of fire into space. Commander Arya Nox hadn't moved from her chair. "Status update." "Confirmed hits on 4 targets," her weapons officer replied. "5th one caught a glancing blow and spun into its own beam array. That one technically blew itself up." Nox raised an eyebrow. "Style points." Meanwhile, aboard the crumbling bridge of what remained of the Arxani fleet, Ambassador Vorek had stopped yelling and started pacing. "This is a diplomatic massacre," he muttered. "We initiated a ceremonial cleansing sequence. This isn't how the script goes." A technician looked up from his console. "Sir, may I remind you, Earth doesn't follow scripts." "No," Vorek snapped. "They follow spite." On the Basilisk, Earth's fleet was still perfectly stationary. It wasn't even maneuvering. The ships were locked in what looked like a lazy blockade formation, if that blockade had railguns the size of subway tunnels and ammo storage labeled with handwritten notes like "for special occasions." Nox leaned forward slightly. Open comms. Broadcast to the remaining Arxani ships. The comms tech blinked. What do you want me to say? Tell them that was just the warm-up. All of it? No, Nox smirked. Make it sound ominous. Use the gravelly voice setting. As that message echoed across the void, the Arxani fleet flinched. Several ships immediately activated jump drives, only to find their long-range nav systems were being jammed. They're jamming us? Vorak shrieked. With what? They don't even have proper data relays. We think, radio signals, possibly from the satellite playing Rick Astley on loop. No, Vorak whispered. They're rickrolling us mid-battle. Confirmed, said the AI. We've also detected a file named Final Surprise 2.exe being broadcast on loop from their flagship. Vorak turned pale. Is that a virus? Unclear. It's attached to a rotating 3D model of their ship. Breakdancing. A second later, the sixth rail slug hit. This one pierced the hull of the Arxani carrier, Resplendent Gale, tore through its gravity core, and sent it spinning like a drunken frisbee into the nearest support ship. Nox cracked her knuckles. All right, she said. Let's spool up the fun ones. The fun ones? Her tech asked. Yep, load the dumbfire batch, the ones we can't steer. Ma'am, those are extremely stupid and wildly effective, I know. Down in Earth's command bunker, a retired general monitoring the feed from the moon base sighed and lit a cigar. They really thought we still used missiles because we were behind. His adjutant nodded. To be fair, we do still use missiles. Yeah, the general shrugged, but ours punch through shields, atmospheres, and egos. That's worth something. Back in orbit, Ambassador Vorak had begun issuing emergency withdrawal orders, only to realize he was out of ships. How many are left? 4, sir, and one of them is technically now part of another ship. No, he said hollowly, this can't be happening. On the Basilisk, Nox locked eyes with the tactical screen and whispered, Oh, it's happening, and we're not even sweating yet. The final 4 Arxani ships tried to scatter, engines burning white hot, but it was like watching pigeons flee a freight train. The Basilisk and her fleet didn't even bother realigning. They just fired a spread of dumbfire slugs into the predicted escape vectors. No tracking, no fancy calculations, just a brute force understanding of panic and physics. 2 ships managed to jump into hyperspace, blind jumps, desperate and directionless. But the other 2 weren't so lucky. One was bisected mid-burn by a rail slug the size of a city bus. The other attempted evasive maneuvers so violently it tore its own stabilizers off and spun into Earth's atmosphere, turning into a shooting star that nobody would bother wishing on. Ambassador Vorak watched his tactical screen flicker to black. No ships, no backup, no speeches left to give. Sir, his aide said, incoming transmission. It's text only. Vorak opened it. 1 line. Those weren't even our good ships. Vorak dropped the datapad like it had personally insulted his lineage. No, he whispered. No, they're bluffing. That was their fleet. That had to be their fleet. Back aboard the Basilisk, Commander Nox propped her boots up on the console, casually sipping from a dented thermos that almost certainly wasn't regulation. All right, she said, stretching. Message from Earth Command. We're clear to resume standard operations. Meaning? Her comms tech asked. Meaning no more holding back. Down in the hangar bays, maintenance crews prepped the real hardware. Modern kinetic platforms, orbital coil guns, smart payload torpedoes, and the infamous Black Arrow projectiles banned by 3 interstellar treaties for unnecessary violence against celestial bodies. They hadn't even been needed today. Earth had fought the Arxani's best diplomatic fleet with nothing but old, unshielded, heavily armored junk, and hadn't lost a single ship. Across the stars, the news spread faster than plasma fire. The Arxani Federation, the so-called peak of galactic civilization, had been humiliated by a planet that still used metal slugs, radio jammers, and something called dumbfire saturation tactics, which, according to most alien strategists, was equivalent to clubbing your opponent with a frozen ham. Ambassador Vorak sat alone in the ruins of his bridge, staring blankly at the Earth fleet still orbiting above, completely untouched. He couldn't understand it. They didn't evolve past projectiles. They didn't chase the new shiny tech trends. They weaponized stubbornness. They industrialized brutality. And they planned for this. "Sir," the AI whispered from a damaged console. "Incoming message again." Vorik flinched. "What now?" The screen blinked to life. It was a live feed. Commander Knox, grinning like a wolf, holding up a hand-painted sign. It simply read, "Come back anytime. We'll be waiting." The feed cut. Vorik slumped back in his chair, finally accepting the one truth no Arxani strategist had ever considered. Earth wasn't behind. Earth wasn't obsolete. Earth was terrifying precisely because it refused to evolve past brutality when brutality worked just fine. "No," Vorik croaked, as the Basilisk and her rusted, unstoppable fleet pivoted away. "No! No! No!" But nobody heard him, and Earth didn't even bother watching him burn. Smash subscribe before Commander Knox aims the real fleet at the algorithm.